Hello, everyone, and welcome to the One Soccer Nation podcast. I'm your host, Kareem Rae. Today, I'm excited to be joined by a special guest, Ryan Harnetiaux. Ryan, thank you for being here. To kick things off, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Excited to chat about all things soccer. Uh, I'm the founder of Aequus Sports LLC, which is the ownership group for both USL clubs, which is Velocity FC in League One and Zephyr FC in USL Super League.
Amazing. Congratulations to you on all your success. And just to share with our audience how me and Ryan connected was back a few months ago. I think it was in June. Correct me if I'm wrong.
July.
July. Wow, I'm losing track of time here. Back in July, down in Spokane, Washington, your home, through the USL Expansion Summit, and got a chance to hear you and your wife share your story of the launch of the club. And it was just an amazing, intimate group to be a part of, to learn from you guys, and to also go out to a game and watch your team play. Ryan, I gotta say, like, when I was watching the game, sitting with someone else as well, we were watching, and we seen you on the sidelines, and we love that. We love the passion that you were showing, the support to your club. Like, that was the first time I seen that. I was at the Rhode Island Stadium with Dan Krober and Greg. We were more so in the suites, but like, to see a club, for myself, first time seeing a club owner down on the grounds, supporting their club, motivating them, etc., it touched my heart because I come from a player background. But that was truly amazing to see.
Yeah, look, if I'm there, I usually have a routine. I don't like to watch the game with anybody typically. I get a lot of attention on the concourse from friends and family and strangers. And of course, I make the rounds in our hospitality area to talk with corporate partners. But I mostly like to be where I can see the game, and the players can hear me. They tell me that later. Katie and I are so deeply involved still in the day to day. We got to know our staff very well, our players very well, and it's not unusual for us to just plop right down in the coach's office after a match, win or lose, and that took them some time to get used to. But and I think that they were pretty taken off guard by that, because I don't think that happens very often. Most head coaches aren't really hanging out with their owners very often unless there's a problem, to be honest. No disrespect meant to any owner that is involved as as we are, but I love being on the pitch for the last part of the game and cheering the guys and the gals on. It's a lot of fun. So
Nice. You know, one of the big topics of discussion recently that I hear a lot come up is that human relationship, and it sounds like that is extremely important to you, and having that human relationship with individuals within your organization is extremely important. So why is that to you?
I think I just had a really incredible youth soccer club experience as a player, and honestly had just an incredible coach at a very high level for about 6 years, all the way from junior high through high school. And this is before people traveled all over the world with a club team of some kind. We did it, way back then, and it was pretty unique to have done that. And so, when we thought about launching this club in Spokane, we wanted it to be authentic, and we wanted to be close to it. I live in Seattle. Katie and I live in Seattle, but Spokane is our home where we grow up, and we spend a lot of time there. And it just allows us to feel really connected to the club and the community, which was the point the whole time. Our point was, go build this in Spokane. And right now it feels like our club, but we want to see this transformation happen over the next few years, where we are essentially giving this club over to the city of Spokane, and they're hopefully happy about having it and embracing it as their own, because that's the feeling that we want to have as this transitions from our thing to their thing, really. So
Understood. Amazing. And it's not to get to the stage that you guys are at, playing games throughout year over year now, and it's a tall task. There's a lot that goes into a project that scale. So what inspired you and your wife to invest in U.S. soccer, and specifically bring both the USL One club and the USL Super League club into the USL system, and why USL? I know that's a
yeah,
two in one, but yeah.
yeah. I'll start with the easiest answer, which is the last part of your question. So why USL? Because they, I think, are doing it the right way. We're not MLS club franchise purchasers. USL is a community-based organization. These clubs start in the communities and grow inside of them and become part of them. The investment opportunity and why we felt like we could do this was really anchored in the stadium that was built downtown Spokane. USL did an incredible job of identifying Spokane as a market that they wanted to be in and working collaboratively with the Spokane Public Schools and the Spokane Public Facilities District, who now owns the stadium. So we have a long-term lease at the stadium, a 20-year lease. We share the stadium with five high schools in the Spokane Public School system, and for me, it was the location of the stadium, the investment on the part of the community to build a brand new state of the art facility. And our ownership group committed to about $4 million plus of investment into the stadium, into some upgrades that really make it feel like a commercial venue and not just a municipal stadium. And since you've been there, you probably got that feel when you're inside there. It does not feel like your typical high school sports venue. So girls and boys soccer play there and boys football play there, and we share the time inside the stadium with them. And to have that opportunity as a kid in high school is pretty special. So for them, I'm jealous because that's not how I grew up playing in Spokane. And for our pro team, the investments we made in the stadium achieved what we wanted them to achieve, which is having independent locker rooms and coaches' offices and training facilities so that we can take care of our players in the right environment and have them have that fully professional experience, which is what USL is at this level. So
Understood. Yeah, I'm jealous too. I grew up playing on grass pitches and turf pitches on just regular normal fields. So I mean,
yeah,
those kids are getting an amazing experience in your stadium. Yeah, just to go back to July. I mean, we got a stadium tour before the game, the day before the game. I liked how the stadium wrapped around in a 360, seats on both sides. Not all stadiums are like that. Louisville's kind of like a U, which is still a nice atmosphere, but it's always nice to kind of get like that full wrap around. So and your club was the first USL One club stadium that I think that I've been to. Actually, I've played. So I played back in Naples United, Florida Naples, where FC Naples now plays USL One club, and their stadium's beautiful as well.
yep,
But so then I was there before FC Naples, so I still consider you guys as my first stadium of USL One. So it was an
good,
amazing experience.
great.
Um, with saying that, when you were elevating, evaluating the opportunity, what factors convinced you that Spokane was a good market to launch a club in?
Spokane's just a live sports market that is has got a population large enough to support both teams, we felt, and the venue being what it was, we really felt like it could take a little bit of time, but it was going to become one of these sports entities in Spokane that took a while to grow, but now thrives. And that was led the way by minor league baseball being in the market for the last, decades and decades. Minor league hockey is also in the market. Gonzaga basketball started with the men's side, but now the women's side is equally as talented and successful. And so you've got Bloomsday, you've got Hoop Fest, you have all these sports entities that have been in the market for 40, 50, 60 years or longer. And then Spokane's just easy to get in and out of, to be honest with you. It's got an international airport, it's growing, it's got a robust economy now. It's getting better. A lot of people have moved back there. I don't think we could have done this 15 years ago, to be honest. I think the last 15 years of growth in population in Spokane, as things have been built out, people have been, especially, kind of that soccer demographic sweet spot, which is probably 18 to 45 or whatever. I mean, it's got a lot of people that came back into the market during COVID to work remotely from San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. So we felt like there was a lot of support there. And that was evidenced by the season ticket deposits that were underway before we even got involved in the project. And so when we got involved and announced the teams, those numbers kind of, got better, obviously, once it was a for sure thing that was going to happen. And for us, it was driven by, really the popularity of soccer, giving something to the community that was going to be this great community asset, a place where people could gather, and it's growing nicely. And a big piece of that was also the women's game and the growth of investment in women's sports and the investment that you can find through investors that really want to put their money behind that because it's been so underinvested for ever, really.
Yep. Why wasn't it? So I'm interested to know, did you guys start both the men's and women's at the same time, or did you guys stagger it out?
No, we started at the same time. I mean, League One, the League One season starts in March, and Super League launched in August of the same year. But we did not want the women's team, which is Division One sanctioned through U.S. Soccer. We didn't want the women's club to be an afterthought or even perceived as an afterthought, because a lot of clubs right now, I think, are scrambling to add a women's team to their platform because they feel like it's the right thing to do now. We wanted it to be the right thing from the very get-go. So we did not want to delay the launch of our Super League team a year or two, because we wanted to be clear on why we did this whole project, and the women's game was a big piece of that. So yeah, we bit off a very big bite, and it's come with a lot of pain in some ways, but I don't think we would regret doing it or do it any different way if we had a choice again.
Have you spoke to other? Has there been other ownership groups in USL that have done the same type of launch, of launching both the professional men's side and the professional women's side at the same time?
Not exactly the same way. I think the closest thing to it could be a Lexington, um, maybe Brooklyn with their launch, but they're a little bit behind on their championship league team. So it's not exactly identical. I believe that we are the only professional club in the country that's ever launched a men's and a women's team at the same time. Which is a pretty big deal, and probably why nobody else has done it, to be honest. It's very difficult. It takes a lot. Takes a lot of planning, a lot of capital, community support, and we've had those things from the beginning, and that's been good. And now we're kind of in that second year of everything, and it's kind of go time and grow time.
Yeah, that's huge. So where does I'm trying to gauge, when did you were you guys a part of the project? Because I'm just connecting the dots here. Were you a part of the project from the very beginning of the birth of the launch of the club, in
Yeah.
regards to
The club is us. I mean, here's what happened prior to us. Prior to us, the USL had spent about 18 months in Spokane lobbying, trying to get this stadium built. And that's what they do. They identify markets that have great fan bases and an appetite for soccer. And that's definitely been there in Spokane. And so they did all this legwork and spent all these resources doing this project, getting it working on the stadium design with the Spokane Public Schools and the Spokane Public Facilities District, and rallying support around um, moving some bond money that had been allocated to refurbish an old stadium that had been around for 60 or 70 years, and scrapping that idea and saying, why do that when you can build a brand new stadium downtown where everybody wants to be? And so when we got involved, the club was really just a potential League One team and then a pre-pro women's team in USLW League. When we got involved, we wanted to do the professional team on the women's side as well. And Super League was really just beginning to be built out as a Division Two sanctioned team. That ended up kind of moving towards Division One sanctioning when all the ownership groups who were going to be doing those teams came in and said, "Why would we do Division Two when we can do Division One? And we can, we want to make this." On the same level as NWSL and the pro league standards at Division One. We wanted to be at that level and provide that opportunity for female athletes. And so the club was literally nothing when we got there, except what USL had laid this foundation in the community for what could be. And we modified it, grew the idea, obviously, by adding a second pro team. And then, you create your brand and you create your names and what does your crest look like? Who's investing with you? I mean, we did everything from scratch. It was quite a project. Yeah.
Nice. It's that's extremely impressive, because in my mind, I thought before this conversation that Lexington kind of did the same thing. Actually, Lexington's the only group I thought of. But again, to your point, you guys are the first, and that's it. That's US history right there. With saying that, how does that feel to you? How do you feel about that personally? And because of how much of a heavy lift it is from making sure to have those key relationships, the key stakeholders like the city, to the capital, that heavily affects the P&L, having two teams, to be able to successfully do that.
Look, we're incredibly proud of what we've done. It's early days for us. We think of this as we're in kind of the first inning, still. I mean, for us, this is a long-term project, right? You can't, much as we'd like to, we can't come in and get it perfect in the first year or two. On the pitch, we always knew that we would put out a good product, and we've done that. We made it to the championship game in our first year for Velocity, which is almost unheard of. And in Zephyr's first season. They had a slow start in the fall, but in the spring, they had the best record in Super League and barely missed the playoffs earlier this spring. In our last game of the season. And so we're really proud of the product on the pitch. But the real mission here was to put something in the center of the city that could be called home to anybody who wanted to go. Soccer is inclusive. You don't need to. You really don't need to travel the country to enjoy soccer as a sport as a kid. Some people do, but you don't have to. There's a lot of people who exist in marginalized communities in the Spokane area and don't have a place to go commune with one another around a sport. And sports is like no other event. It has the ability to do that. And so we wanted to bring everybody together in Spokane. There's a large immigrant population in Spokane. We've connected with them in a really deep way since even before we got into market with the clubs. So we're really excited to see what this club looks like 5 to 10 years from now. Again, the hardest part for us is we know we can't do everything in the first couple of years. And I think some of our fans are starting to understand that because soccer fans are very passionate. And of course, they want us to look like, a club that's been operating for decades, right? And that just doesn't happen. I think that we've been really good about defining what our brand is and who we are with how we spend time in the community, how our players are fully professional athletes that live and work in the community of Spokane. And that's unusual, even given the fact that we've got minor league baseball and minor league hockey in town. Those athletes are pretty transitory. They come in and they go, and our athletes are, many of them, almost a majority of them are there on multi-year contracts with us. And so we want them to feel like they're part of the community, and we want the community to feel like it's their club. So we're really proud of it. It does take a lot of capital. So we tried to find partners who believed in the mission that we had. Okay. And so some people invest in these projects for the community aspect of it. And we had some of that. And some people invest in them because they see the enterprise value of clubs rising, professional teams rising. And some people are just a combination of those two things. But everybody was behind the vision that we had for equality with women's sports and putting this product out there as a community asset. And that's why we have brought in incredible investors. We have about 17 or 18 investors now in our ownership group who are all people I would want to hang out with outside of the soccer game for sure. And we do. And they're just an incredible group of people.
Nice. Ryan, I had a question in regards to the project. Actually, before I touch on that, I didn't Uber around in Spokane. I hopped on those scooters, and
Yep.
it was much faster than the scooters that we have here in Toronto, specifically in Brampton. You have to deposit money you have to deposit a certain amount. I think it's like 10 or $20, which is kind of a waste because I just wanted to ride the scooter for fun over here. But in Spokane, it was quick. Like you scan that QR code, you hopped on it, you started riding, and however long you used it for, that's how much it charged you.
Yep.
Now, that's probably because of the scale of the market size in the US. They're like, okay, we got a lot of people, so we don't need to do that. Let's make it a faster transaction so people can get on and off, which was nice. But I got to go around the city and check it out. It was a very nice city. Downtown, it was pretty quiet from my perspective, from what I'm used to. So I'm interested to know the population size. And you guys were, hopefully I'm right on this, please correct me, but the stadium is right downtown.
Yeah, the stadium sits on Riverfront Park, which was built for Expo 74. The World's Fair was there 51 years ago. And so the stadium sits in what's called the North Bank District, which is right on the Spokane River, the north side of it. And so it's interconnected with trails, and there's a lot of easy transportation around town on Lime scooters, as you point out. But yeah, we're right downtown. So the ideal location for any facility, really. I mean, you can take, there's a lot of public transportation. You can bus there, you can walk there, you can scooter. Parking is easy. And in most cases it's free around our stadium, which is nice for fans. But the population in Spokane, in the city, is around 250,000, but Spokane County is almost 600,000. And then you pull in North Idaho. We're 30 miles from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So if you pull in Kootenai County into Spokane County, you're getting towards 850, 900,000 people. So we draw fans from all over that area. And that's why we felt like that both teams could come into the market and have their own fan bases, really, because there's very little overlap between our Zephyr fan and our Velocity fan. It's actually two fairly different fan types, and we learned that in the first year when we only had about 6-7% overlap in season ticket holders between the two. You got your fanatics who took both teams and said, "I'm coming to support all these," but 40 games a year in that stadium is a lot. That's a lot of soccer, and we've learned a lot about that. Just having a pretty congested schedule too has been something we've had to adapt to in how we're selling group packages or multi-game packages rather than just season ticket member packages. It's a tall order to hit 20 games for men and 20 for women. So yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of games. If you don't mind me asking, in regards to the land of what the stadium sits on top of,
yep.
could you share a bit about, uh, is it city owned, state owned? How did that all work out in regards to the kind of partnership you guys have on the
Yep.
land? I know you had said it was a lease at the
Yeah,
school, but
so when USL came in, I mentioned that there was a bond that was passed in 2018. It was a $500 million school bond, and about $32 million of that 500 were earmarked to basically refurbish an old stadium which had been in use in Northwest Spokane, about 20 minutes from downtown. And I grew up going to watch football games there, played some soccer games in that stadium. It needed a lot of work, and the 32 million was like, okay, yeah, you could do that. But when USL came in, they basically worked with the school district and the Spokane Public Facilities District. The Spokane Public Facilities District owns the convention center downtown, the Performing Arts Center, the Spokane Arena, which is right next to our stadium, and also the Podium, which is another multi-purpose facility that they built that sits literally across the street from our stadium. Also, it houses a hydraulic banked indoor track, and so they're able to host national championships for indoor track and field, and they also do everything from concerts inside there to graduation ceremonies. So the Spokane PFD, where our stadium sits right now, was a parking lot, just a big open air parking lot that was not used enough. And so part of what the PFD did is they pitched in the land for this project. So now the land has got a stadium sitting on it and some parking, but that's really the only way this would have worked out, because there's not just a bunch of land sitting around like most downtown areas. They just don't typically have that kind of land sitting there. So it was it's kind of a stroke of luck and a whole lot of collaboration between two public entities with different boards and different mandates, and one private enterprise, with USL coming in, and then a second private enterprise, which is just our investor group. So it took a lot to make this happen, like it does in every market. You've been to plenty of USL conversations. It takes a long time to cultivate relationships in markets around the country, and the Spokane trip for a lot of investors and city planners and city leaders was probably a really big eye opener. It's like, wow, okay, this can work, and it is. So it's a great showcase, and it took a lot of people to be on the same page to get it done.
you took the word right out of my mouth. Time. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And how much time did it take from start to beginning to get this project to kick off?
Yeah. So I got involved with this project in March of 22. And by September 1st of that year, I had signed an expansion agreement with USL, which kind of locked down the project for us. And then about a year later, we had finalized our lease negotiations with the Spokane Public Facilities District and with the USL on our franchise agreements for both clubs. Because remember, there's two franchise agreements that are unique. And so really it took 18 months to get to signing the lease on behalf of our ownership group. And then 7 months after that, we kicked. So it felt like we had no time at all, because time flies when you're doing all that work. But it literally takes most of the time, it literally takes years to develop these markets. USL started working on this market in 2019, maybe 2020, and it didn't kick until March of 24. So it took them 4 years of work on that project. to get it to first kick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Was there any other groups that you had to compete with to acquire the market rights from USL or
They were looking for the right owner in Spokane. And anytime you go into a market like Spokane, they talk to a lot of different people. That part of the reason why I got involved, because I live in Seattle, part of the reason why I got involved was just I made a curiosity call to USL to find out who they were talking to in Spokane, because I was just curious who would bring forth those kind of resources that were going to be needed to accomplish it through everything from buying the expansion club to standing up a front office to executing on a vision. And I know a lot of people in Spokane. I grew up there, went to college at Gonzaga. We lived there for a long time before moving back over to Seattle here. I kind of just wanted to know who was on the docket for it, and a lot of names that I knew were people that they'd approached on it, and it wasn't the right fit for people. And they, USL does a great job of trying to identify the right owners. And we went through a process, and really I got interested in it right away, mostly around adding a women's side, which kind of accelerated my whole conversation with USL because they were very agreeable to that. And then it took, 18 months to get it all inked. But was I competing with other groups? Sure, but it's also Katie and I were just the right fit for this project. I think given our knowledge of the market, having grown up there, and we have a good feel for it, and that's hard to find. It's really difficult to bring an outsider into a market who wants, like, I couldn't go do what we've done in Spokane in another market. I just couldn't, because I haven't lived there. I didn't grow up there. I don't understand the fabric of the market, what makes the city tick. And Katie and I talk about that a lot. We could do a lot to help people come to the right plan on how to execute a project, but not in terms of like weaving your club into the fabric of the community. That's for community people to do. You need to have that part of it present in any of these projects. So it's local, and it has to feel local, or else it doesn't feel authentic. You know what I mean?
yeah, 100%. Um, in regards to the name and the logo, how did you guys create that? Did you guys get the community involved and host a competition or hire?
Actually, yeah, yeah. Actually, the league did some really good work with a creative agency on the Velocity logo. It had a different name, which I won't say. It had a different name when we picked up the project that they were contemplating, and um, there was a trademark issue with the specific name, and we couldn't come to terms with the person who had jumped in line and filed a trademark with that name. I think once they got word that this project had that name on it, somebody hopped the line, and so we came up with a totally unique name, and we kept the crest for Velocity. That we liked a lot. Those water blades represent the Spokane River, which runs right through downtown, and is a big part of the story on the force and power of nature, and the river, which literally goes right by the stadium. And so um, when it came time for the women's team, we really had to start from scratch because we did not want to have the Lady Velocity. We felt like that was not paying the respect to women that they deserve to have their own brand launched from the very beginning. And again, our idea was we couldn't have this be an afterthought to the men's team. That wasn't going to be the case. So we had to create a strong brand for the women. And I can tell you right now, it's really hard to name a soccer club. And it's just, you're going to get roasted. Just don't go online. Don't look at the comments. You know what I mean? Haters are always going to pop up, and of course they did. But we think that the brands are right, and we're done really well. And so we worked with a second creative agency in Spokane, who's awesome. They're both the agencies we worked with were great. But we created the Zephyr brand out of nothing, and we called it Zephyr because we felt like the winds have changed. Zephyr it means the west wind. It's the god of the west wind in mythology, and we felt like the winds of change in women's sports and equality in sports was important to be reflected in the name, and powerful, and wind is powerful. And so we feel like the brand has taken a really nice hold on people. I think people understand that. And our ownership group is called Aequus Sports, and Aequus is Latin for equal, means equal or fair. And so there should be a little confusion for people about how we feel about sports and equality between men's and women's sports. So,
Nice. Um, y- Not a lot of ownership groups have both their husband and wife. Um,
yeah,
so how's that experience been for yourself? And
yeah,
how did you guys go about making that decision to say, hey, we both want to be a part of this club creation?
yeah. Look, I'm still married since the last time I saw you a few months ago. That's good. Katie and I, Katie and I met each other as summer camp counselors, so we have a pretty good foundation for a very long, awesome marriage with three incredible kids. They're all very sporty, and so we jumped into this together. You can't do this without your spouse. I mean, I don't think if it was one team, maybe I could have, or maybe she could have without me. But doing it with two teams is too much. And so we needed both. And at the time, she was at Amazon and she was leading North America consumer marketing for Amazon. And over the course of this launch, you know, when she's working 60 or 70 hours a week for Amazon, and then the end of her day is not the end of her day. It's okay. Now let me tell you how my day went. And so we are, we're lucky that we like each other a lot. And I don't have the skill sets that she does. And she doesn't have the exact same skill sets that I do. And so we hoped that they would complement each other because I talked her into leaving Amazon about 2 years ago, actually, probably 2 years ago this week. And she's the president of both clubs, Velocity and Zephyr, and runs the front office and handles operations for the club. And I tend to be handling ownership group issues, and we don't view it as she works for me or I work for her. We have partners and investors that we both work for, and we have a duty to represent. And then really, we just feel like at the end of the day, we're trying to build this for Spokane. We, again, are trying to release ownership of this club to the community over time. And we're really, again, I think we're rounding first base on that part of the process right now. But it is, yeah, it's hard, it's stressful, it's long days and long nights, and we have to always continue to try and find balance in our professional and personal lives. It's not for the weak, it's not for the faint of heart, and I can only recommend it if you really, really enjoy spending just an incredible amount of time with your spouse or partner. Um, it's been a it's been a blessing for us in a lot of ways, and the biggest challenge of our life in others. So yeah, but doing this is the biggest challenge of our lives anyway. Do you know what I mean? So with or without having both of us engaged on a daily basis, this is very difficult to do, and it's nice to be in it with her because it literally takes both of us at the moment to keep the wheels of the bus.
Very nice. Yeah, it was super nice to meet both of you, and I saw the energy from the both of you of how passionate you guys are about this project and the amounts of work. And again, to go back to seeing you on the field was just it was nice. It touched me.
Yeah,
Um,
appreciate that.
if you don't mind sharing, what's your background?
Yeah, look, my background was I grew up in Spokane my whole life. Went to Gonzaga Prep, went to Gonzaga University, graduated with a political science degree. Thought I was going to go to law school, and then I got kind of sidetracked into an investment job in Seattle, and I never left that industry. And so I spent 22 years in wealth management, and ended up kind of retiring out of that business in 20 really it was like 2018, 2021 maybe. So because I wanted to go work at a startup in the Bay Area, which I did for about 3 years. And so that gave me the bug to do this. I was ready for to go build something. And um, it was a precursor. My time in the Bay Area, I was working in Menlo Park a lot, and then in Seattle and in Scottsdale where we had offices. And that was really the precursor to saying, okay, this is really fun. I should have done this in my 20s when I had more energy, but fine. And so that gave me kind of the know-how. Um, but you don't know if you can go do something until you go do it. You know what I mean? I had a strong background in finance and in people, and my business background gave me a big insight into how all companies run, really. And being in this business, if you're out there talking to corporate partners, as an example, you really got to understand what business they're in too to help, make it a good deal for everybody. And that's been a plus for both Katie and I. She ran marketing for the biggest company on the planet, and it's like, you know, to bring those skills to something, they don't always translate into a very localized project, but a lot of it does. You can't get everything that we were doing packed into these projects, but it does give us a pretty good way to look at the business part of the club, and the soccer part of the club. Just as a soccer guy growing up, that was my sport. Played it at a pretty high level, but didn't have any interest in playing college ball. It seems like 30 years ago that wasn't as popular as it is right now, and but a lot of my teammates did, and maybe half of them did at the time. But soccer was my thing, and we're big soccer fans. We're Saturday, Sunday Premier League people. Wake up early, watch soccer, and I've seen what clubs can do for communities, and that was just a big piece of this project. Was thinking we can take what we know and go stand something up and do it in the right way, which is incredibly difficult, and most people do not do it in the right way. But we felt like if we could endure the pain of doing it in the right way, it could be sustainable. And USL, we liked their model. We like the direction that they're taking. There's a lot of things on the horizon with promotion and relegation and other initiatives that are going to be happening that are really differentiators from what the situation in the United States looks like right now for soccer. And there's a lot of really cool things that are going to happen in the next few years.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you because you're on the West Side, and with your amount of experience, with the works that you've done in the wealth management space, I was going to ask you, like, why not focus on tech or something digital, right? Because those things sometimes tend to be frictionless and move faster. And I get connected to a lot more people through the internet. But I kind of gauge the like from you're a soccer guy, your background, your soccer touch points, and then the mentions of the community. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
then
It's
there's no
it's
point
the
in
it's
asking that one.
yeah, it's you can't there's we're all about tech and using it to our advantage in the club and fan engagement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. AI, yes, we're using platforms that are new and growing, but ultimately sports is sports and there's nothing like it. And soccer specifically, I believe, has an edge in inclusion and in accessibility. And that's what we wanted to help continue to promote was inclusion and accessibility. And I just don't think that you can have the same feeling with basketball or volleyball or baseball. There's a different kind of community for those sports, certainly, but my knowledge was from soccer, so it felt really comfortable to me to try. And again, it's all about being authentic, right? If people think you're not sincere about what you're doing, they'll never come to your games. They're not going to give you money to invest in. They're not going to believe what you tell them if you're asking them to be a corporate partner of yours. So we've tried to be authentic, and I can't go fake some other industry that I really don't care about. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it could have been a lot easier to be in something a little less capital intensive at the beginning. I always joke with people, this isn't like someone inventing a piece of software in the basement at their parents' house, who's a genius. That's not what we are. We have a vision. We want to execute it the right way. We're very disciplined in how we go about making decisions, all the way from who we hire as interns, which is very hard to get in our office, all the way to being a player. We turn away players all the time because we don't want scorched earth, not even one. We look for the best staff we can find, and we have a process for everything. And I think probably it slows us down in some ways, but it's worth it in the long run, which is what we're all aiming towards. So yeah,
Amazing. I'm working on getting to where you are from a different position in life. And Ryan, like I mean, a lot of the club owners are inspirations to me, but you're up there for me. The synergy that we have, and I always appreciate. I've said this countless times before. I always appreciate an owner that has that soccer touch to it. I feel like there's a different type of connection they have to the game. Um, And yeah, so it's saying that I wanted to get a visualization for myself in regards to how how many we're in the people business, right? I mean, a lot of things are in the people business, but how many calls before you guys got kicked off again? I know I'm kind of going backtrack, but how many calls did you have to be a part of, or, to would you say over from 2022 to kickoff to 2024? How many calls were you on?
I mean, thousands probably.
Oh,
We started, this started slow, and the due diligence that we went through for the first 3 or 4 months, 5 months maybe, was just me um, doing a lot of work with a couple people. And the professional soccer community, especially in the USL ecosystem, was very generous with their time and talking to me about what their experience was like in launching their own clubs. Also talked to people who own clubs outside of the United States who I had access to through friends. And but this project should have died 250 deaths. And because it's very, very difficult to get everything to where it needs to be okay signing on a contract like what we did. It really is. That's why they're valuable though, right? If it were easy, everybody would be doing it. It's finding the capital, it's finding the right partners, it's trying to figure out what you need to stay alive while you're building your brands. How much money are we burning every year? These clubs are not profitable for a long time, and that's if they ever get there. Costs are rising faster than anything else, and so you have to figure all that out, and you have to try and answer really difficult questions, like, okay, we got one club. That's hard enough. We have two. What's this going to take? And the answer is it's going to take a whole lot. And whatever you think you need, you're going to need twice as much. If you've ever, anybody listening who's ever built a house, um, understands that you could have a budget, but that's just where it starts. You know what I mean? So we're trying to be disciplined about it, but it should have died 250 deaths. And you got to just find someone. If you're doing this, you got to just keep plowing. You got to keep working. Most people just give up, and it may or may not be their fault, because maybe you don't have because you need a stadium. That's the reality. And that's why USL is so intent on finding markets and ownership groups that have access to help put up stadiums in cities. Because if you don't have a stadium that you can control enough for the revenue piece, it doesn't work very well. So,
yeah.
but yeah, it's hard. It's
Uh,
hard.
yeah, extremely hard, especially to get all the different parties to sign off and push things forward. So, and everything takes time. It doesn't move
Yeah.
quick. So yeah. Um, how has your experience been with USL?
USL's been great. Look, it's the league. The league is pioneering. They're doing something right now with the men's side that has never been done before in the United States or in North America. I mean, we're working towards promotion and relegation. That's not why we chose to invest in this League One team, but it was on our minds when we were looking at it. And now 3 years later, I was just in a meeting yesterday in Dallas where we're talking about the progress that's being made on our by the league, by U.S. Soccer Federation, by League One owners and Championship League owners, and then the next iteration of USL, which is Division One's league, which is launching in 28. Look, they're putting a process forward that's really difficult. You've got to get all of your stakeholders on the same page. I was at a meeting 2 years ago in Colorado Springs with the same group of people, a few more now because the league's grown, and we couldn't get this done. You know what I mean? We couldn't. There was a different, but times have changed and conversations have progressed, and so I think the league has been outstanding at identifying ownership groups that have a shared vision for what soccer should be in the United States. It's a differentiator for them against MLS, which has had a totally different plan since day one. And so that's really exciting. Super League, I mean, hats off to the league for supporting us as owners who wanted to do this as Division One sanctioning instead of Division Two. That in itself is very difficult to get. U.S. Soccer doesn't just hand out Division One sanctioning to people. U.S. Soccer has its own critics, but they worked with the league and with ownership groups to get everything sanctioned, and that was no small task either. That took 2 years, and so I have a deep respect for the league and building this thing out. Like like anybody, they're learning along the way too, right? They're not I don't think they would even admit that they do everything right, but they are a strong, solid partner with a really good idea of what soccer should look like for kids in this country and developing that youth to pro pathway. And that does not exist in the United States right now, which is why our product is not frankly as good as it could be. Um, so I admire them for starting at the ground level with these local kind of groundswells of support. And that starts with their youth academy and club teams and goes all the way up to the pro teams, which by the end of, 28, will have seen it's probably its first year of a promotion and relegation system in its first iteration anyway, which we're really excited about. So they have a really hard job, and we're most of the time very aligned with what they do, and and then we also both challenge each other along the way to make. But anytime you have that kind of healthy tension, your league hopefully is getting stronger and more sustainable, and that's what all anybody wants is for clubs in the league to continue to grow and be sustainable long term. So.
Absolutely. So if you could share one key point publicly from the internal conversations from USL One owners and USL Championship owners to vote that you guys all were most voted, yes, we want to bring in Pro Rel. And what could you share publicly that was the reason to, hey, this is why we need to do it in the United States, because MLS is not doing it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there are some things I can't share, but what I can share is this. The league knew, and so did we, that we needed to have a very large majority of owners vote for this. Okay. 2 years ago, we couldn't get it done. League One owners, we're 100% yes. That's easy to say yes when you're in Division Three. And it's harder if you're in Championship League because there's a higher cost of operating those teams. And so I think it took a little bit more work to convince Championship League owners that this was a good idea. Now, when USL committed to launching a Division One sanctioned league above them, then they had something to reach for with promotion. So you always were going to need to have three divisions of professional soccer to make. You can't do pro rel with two leagues; it's meaningless. So you needed the third league. So when USL committed to doing it, and there's strong interest in that league from lots of different people. So once that happened, that really tipped people over to vote. Okay. So Jägermeister Cup last year, when we had crossover games between Division Two and Division Three teams with Jaeger Cup, I think that also gave owners something else to talk about with their fans. And it was all about, for us, doing something that differentiated ourselves. That's why League One launched it 2 years ago. So there was that, and then there was Division One announced by USL. And once USL Division One announcement came out, the fanfare around it from fans and just the online um, reception to that news, I think it got a lot of Championship League owners' attention who really felt like, okay, that's a really strong response. If we are going to do this, we should ride that momentum and get back in here and talk about this again. And so that's kind of how that all came about. It was USL launching a Division One league, and then ProRel all of a sudden gets more real, and it got people back to the table to vote, and it was an overwhelming yes, and that's what it needed to be to make sure that everybody was on the same page. Now the league and the ownership groups are doing a lot of that really, really heavy lifting, which is, okay, what does this look like? Right. Like, how are we going to structure this? Is it 3 up, 3 down? Is it 2 up, 2 down with a playoff for the last spot, like the English leagues do with a Championship League promotion? So we have to go figure all that stuff out. And then all of the economics around it are very complex, right? I can't even go into those because the knowns I can't talk about and the unknowns we don't know about yet. But you have players under different collective bargaining agreements in the men's divisions, and you got to figure a lot of things out. How does it affect players? How does it affect the club, the league, fans, expansion, the whole thing? So it's very tricky. which is why it's going to take a little bit of doing to get it to the right spot. So, but I'm really excited because everybody's working their tails off to get it done, and U.S. soccer is firmly behind it, which is really important to have happen. And I think that we'll see some things. I think we'll see some changes that are going to be really good for the sport in this country because of what's gone on with USL pushing pro rel and creating this third division of men's pro.
Absolutely. Ryan, I appreciate you taking the extra time with me. Last quick question. What are your thoughts on the 2026 World Cup and how is that going to impact your club?
Yeah, look, I'm as excited as anybody else. I live in Seattle. There's a venue here. We're going to get 6 or 8 games, something like that. It's going to turn the country upside down, I think. Certainly going to turn the city upside down. Our clubs are going to benefit because people are talking about soccer. And Spokane is a potential training site for one of the teams for the Seattle venue, at least. There's a couple other West Coast venues, but hopefully we get a chance to be part of hosting a team in Spokane to train for a few weeks before a World Cup game starts. And that's been it's kind of spearheaded by the city and Gonzaga University. It's got to be a grass field, so they can't play at our stadium, but they can train at Gonzaga, which is a mile from us. And so we're really excited to see what it does to elevate the game. And then there's some other, big, international competitions landing in the U.S. in the next 4 or 5 years beyond that. And so I think there's just a huge, huge wave of momentum around soccer, and again, Pro Rel is going to be a big piece of that, and the growth of Super League is going to be a big piece of that too. So we're excited.
Nice. Well, Ryan, once again, I truly appreciate you taking the time for being on the One Soccer Nation podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Kareem. Good to see you.